We're actively marketing our Space Drop manifest, the first mission, second mission. There are still some spots available on the first mission that will fly in October 2023. CubeSats only, mostly 6U CubeSats, but if you need to launch your CubeSat in the Q4 of this year, Falcon 9 on board of our space van, you are more than welcome to contact us to take part of that exciting first mission.
Hey, SpaceWatchers. This is Space Café Radio, your channel about trends, great people and awesome conferences. As you could just heard from my guest, Henri, co-founder of ExoTrail, they offer current opportunities to get your 6U CubeSat into space this fall. But we spoke about so much more, about their portfolio, their ambitions as a European company, and the challenges they are facing. I'm Torsten, publisher of SpaceWatch.Global, and this episode is supported by ExoTrail. Enjoy our conversation. Thank you very much for making this time. I'm super excited that you could carve out or that in your very busy schedule. And in space mobility, it is a tagline we find when looking up your company. A few years back, that would be totally science fiction and fantasy, but today it seems real. Can you give us this typical 90-second pitch on ExoTrail, please?
Thanks a lot first for the invitation. And believe me, if you'd have told me 10 years ago that I would be managing a space logistics company, I wouldn't probably have believed you. So I do that at ExoTrail. We are, as you've said, a space logistics company. So on Earth, when you want to move, basically, you use software like Google Maps, City Mapper to find your route in space. Then you might use your car to move, or you might buy a bus ticket to move to your destination. And if you are, let's say, a logistics operator, you use also software to operate your fleet of vans, bus, trucks, and so on. Basically, the way we look at space is the same. So you have big cargo company, SpaceX, obviously, but also Arianespace, ISRO, and so on, delivering payloads, tons of payloads, space. And what we do at ExoTrail is that we focus on the last mile delivery bits. So our mission is to move things from one position to another. And to do this, we use the same approach that is used on Earth. So we do software first. We do mission design, mission operation software so that you can find your route in space and optimize that route, design, optimize your constellation. Then we provide the right means of transportation. So we develop first a line of space transportation services that we call Space Drop. We design a vehicle. The vehicle is called the space van, and you can put your satellites in the space van and we'll carry these satellites at the right destination so that they can deliver as quickly as possible the right value to your customers. But we also build thrusters that we can put in your satellites directly so that you can move as you want with the flexibility that you want. And once we've done that, we do software again. So we design a constellation operation software to help you to optimize the operation of your fleet. And obviously, we use also that software for the space van. So that's really what we do. Our mission is moving things as quickly as possible so that you can reduce your launch costs, so that you can increase your performances, and so that you can reduce space pollution.
To clarify on the 90-second pitch, you have a vehicle that is equipped with the payload you want to deliver on the various orbits and then bring it there, or you pick it up from space, put it on your vehicle and send it like a tug on space?
So for now, the first, and in the next couple of years, 3 years, 4 years, second. So right now, we design our orbital transfer vehicle, the space van. And the space van can host a bunch of satellites using standardized ESPA class rings, spin pullers, or CubeSats. And so we put the passengers, we call them the passengers, so our customer satellites, we put them on the space van. We do that on Earth, right? So pre-launch. The customer will deliver the satellite at our facilities, will integrate the satellites in our space van, will ship the space van to the launch site. Then launch will occur. And after launch, we will detach from the rockets, turn on our thrusters, and then we will carry the various satellites at different locations in their orbits. And what we do and the value that our customer gets from that is that they can deploy with 1 or 2 launches, with a minimal number of launches. They can deploy their whole constellation at specific orbital planes, a specific inclination, specific altitude, without having to buy either complex, or not so much complex, but expensive dedicated launches at every single location that they need, or a lot of different orbital transfer vehicles that would need chemical propulsion. And because of that, they would be only able to carry a small amount of these satellites into this location.
I would like to try to give our audience a better overview about ExoTrail and the guys behind. You by yourself, going on your website, have a very impressive background, and I assume also your other co-founders too. Can you give us some more background on you and the team of founders? And at the end, what did you motivated you to start your company?
We started in 2015. 3 of the 4 founders right now met. So Jean-Luc, who is now our CEO, Paul, who is now our chief scientist, and myself. And so Jean-Luc has some experience. He was actually working as a space engineer in the French research agency for 15, 20 years, working on many non-Earth missions, so flying on Venus or so on. And Paul and I, we were students. And actually, we were 2015, if you remember, it was the first big launches of Planet, for instance, the first big launch of Planet Labs at the time with over 20 satellites. There was this big energy in the space sector. We probably didn't know at the time that we were entrepreneurs, but I think that we saw that energy and new market arising, and we said, okay, some things are going to happen in that industry, which was really at the early stage of the kind of boom that we see today. And we then looked at mobility. And the reason for that is that I was struck by that launch of Planet, which was pretty archaic in the sense that it was a piggyback model at the time. So you had an actual launch for an actual real satellites. And it seemed to me like there was this company that had raised dozens of millions of dollars at the time already, launching the satellites in somebody else's rockets without control of anything, time, cost, schedule, and so on. And so I said that it will clearly be, let's say, something that will slow the development of that industry. And so that was the kind of situation that we saw at that time. And then we met with a researcher, retired, that had developed a very tiny thruster. And so we saw, okay, there is that market that is rising. There is that clear rising problem of moving in space. And we had access to what was at the time a kind of TRL 1-2 technology, and we say that there could be a match. And in order to assess that match, we typed how to basically design a trajectory in low Earth orbit, or how to design a constellation with optimal configuration. And we found out that all the software available out there were extremely complex, and that it was the software as well was built in an industry that was changing, and the software were built for the industry before this changes. So it was very complex to get answers for this very simple question. Where should I move? How can I move? How long it will take? What's the right location for the satellites of my constellation? So we actually started mission design software initially for our own use, because we wanted to understand what was the value of our potentially technology, which was the propulsion. So super early on, we started this software and propulsion approach. We were mostly known as a propulsion company, but actually we started software even before in terms of tech development, the propulsion side. And as for the space van, we started off in 2017. So actually before the incorporation of the company, we had already deposited the brand name Space Van. So that's really what motivated us. Energy in the industry, a clear need for something, and access to a technology that had the potential to meet that needed a pretty solid amount of years of development. And then for part of it, we've found out that later. But this was really the energy and obviously the team. So we met with my co-founders and we were pretty complementary. So that's why we wanted to start. And then the reason why we were in Europe and in France, but I'm not going to invent a story. Honestly, we were living in France, we were living in Paris, so it was the easiest to get there, but also we had no reason to leave. I think that at that time, we had nothing. Like, we had ideas, we had a piece of tech, and we needed 1 million euros to at least make a prototype. And we got that with first funding through something that was a kind of technology transfer office, and we found that €1 million, we were still students. The conversion of that investment into shares was happening only 2 years after, so once the technology had been de-risked, which is pretty entrepreneur-friendly. There is not many countries in the world where you can have that. And then you have BPI France, which is a big public bank in France, which can support with grants to co-fund technology, so that when you want to raise for €1 of venture capital money, you can say, yeah, I already have €1. So if you put €1 as well, that's €2. So I'd say that in the early stage, so seed, Series A, you got access to that public funding that leveraged the private funding. And you also have a venture capital ecosystem, which is pretty functional when you are raising tickets in the order of a few million euros, basically. So that was good. And space access to talent is amazing in Europe. We've got basically all in launch proportion, in software and mission design, mission system. We have all the ecosystem of skills that you need, this at various stages of the company. So at the beginning, engineering skill set, now production skill set. And the cost of that skill is much lower than in the US. And the quality of the engineers that are in Europe and in France is simply very good. Obviously, the market is smaller than elsewhere. It still exists, right? There are still a bunch of different countries that invest massively in Europe. And there is a level of ambition. And I think Europe is discovering a bit that it has power and that we need to do something in space. But we were there. That's the answer to your question. And no reason to move away from France and Europe.
How are you funded then?
So today we are funded mostly through venture capital. So we've done 2 fundraisings in ExoTria. The first one was a $3 million fundraising in 2018. And the second one was a Series A fundraising of $11 million. Right? So that's the private money that we got. In terms of also capital efficiency, I think Europe is pretty strong because all of what we've done, and we'll mention that later on, we've done it while raising only, let's say, $14 million. We got then another $6 million or so of public funding through grants, debt. That is mostly public. We also got a bit of private debt. And that's how we got our first funding. And now, obviously, it generates a fair amount of revenues, so which obviously we are not profitable yet, but this obviously is used to fund our growth. So yeah, that's basically how we've been funded in the first place.
What is the status of your development today?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Moving is right up there with death and divorce in the Stress Olympics. But fear not. Turn that box of woes into a crate of woes with moving tips in the Life Beyond Boxes podcast with Premium Q Moving. Dive into the world of hassle-free moves, learn tips and tricks to save on cash and your sanity. Say goodbye to those moving meltdowns and hello to the smooth sailings, or should we say smooth movings? Tune into Life Beyond Boxes with Premium Q Moving on lifebeyondboxes.com or find us on your favorite podcast platform. And with us, unpack the secrets to a stress-free move.
We've grown a fair bit. We are right now recording this podcast in January 2023, and we have hired already more people this year than in 2019. So that gives you a bit which I find quite funny. We have always had a vision of building our mobility hub, that we call, which is a family of holistic end-to-end space mobility solutions for satellite operators, integrators, launchers. And this vision, this hub includes software. As I mentioned, the equivalent of SkyMapper would be the Space Studio, which is our mission design software. Space Drop is our space transportation services. We want to offer other services with our space van in the future. Space Refuel, Space Clean, so services to refuel satellites on Earth, to clean debris in space, which will be in the medium future. Spaceware is our family of propulsion systems, and Space Tower is our family of mission, operation, and optimization software. But the thing is that we had that vision, and the thing that we did not want to do is we're going to build all of that at the same time, cross our fingers that our investors are going to support us all along, and let's meet in 10 years with all of these products developed. This is not what we've done. And so we broke down that vision, we retro-engineered that vision into smaller steps. And the step one was we're going to do propulsion and mission design software. This is going to be used to generate heritage, revenues, knowledge, credibility, customer base, so that we can fund the next stage of our development, which is adding to these 2 product lines, Space Tower, our operation software, and Space Drop, which are our space transportation services. So that then, after that, we'll still also be able to use this as a base of revenue, credibility, heritage, to build the next generation of our services, which will be on-orbit servicing, to extend the life of spacecraft in space, to clean the spacecraft, to refuel the spacecraft, and so on. So now we are a bit in step 2. Step 1, I consider that we've done that. So we've got Space Studio and Spaceware, our mature products. So Space Studio, there are many customers that are using Studio to design their constellation, optimize their trajectories. Some of them that you know, Eutelsat, ESA Aerospace, the Ministry of Defense in France here, using Space Studio. We can still, I think, bring a lot of value for people that need to be efficient in the way they design space constellation and satellite mission in a modern and collaborative way. And I think we can still grow a lot on this product, and that's what we intend to do this year. Spaceware, we've delivered there are a few propulsion systems in space. We intend to deliver around 50 propulsion systems this year. We've signed the majority of these propulsion systems already. So we have customers in the US, in Asia, in Europe, in France, more than 4 or 5 constellation customers, more than 10 customers all across the globe. So we have really a product in production right now. Okay, so we're still developing new products for small sat, a bit bigger. But the propulsion system that we have for nano, micro, and small sat, let's say, are relatively mature in terms of qualification and technical development. So then now we are in step 2. The objective is to grow on this product, so to really grow our customer base, grow our production capabilities, grow our software deployment capabilities, and develop the new products that will ensure that we continue to deliver on that mobility hub vision. And these 2 new products are Space Tower. Space Tower, as our constellation operation and automation software, is used to automate operation, right? In the legacy world, you have usually an operation team, an ops team, and a flight dynamics team. And these 2 teams are using separate tools, separate software, and you basically are enabling your mission control software to abstract what you need to perform in terms of flight dynamics, orbit determination, propagation, and so on and so forth. Which is okay if you have a few satellites, which certainly is not okay at all if you have dozens or hundreds of satellites. And so we bring these 2 things together. So we build a modular mission control software and flight dynamics system to bring a level of automation and a level of training also before launching your spacecraft that isn't matched today. So we've been in beta for about a year now, mostly with customers in the US actually. So we are continuing this beta with these customers and with ourselves as well. And so we'll use Space Tower to operate our space van, which is flying, and we'll come back to that in October this year. That will be the first flight of our space van. And so we are a registered operator, ExoTrail right now, and so we will use our own mission operation software to operate our space van, and we're using it already to train our future operators to that job. And so when we will be able to operate the first object in space, that will have the flight heritage, which will allow us to really enter the next step, which will be to grow our customer base and to grow our business. So that's on Space Tower. And Space Van, our first flight is in October 2023. The idea is to demonstrate our capability to fly, operate end-to-end our mission, de-risk the technologies, fly with some customers inside the Space Van, so that we can then be confident in our second mission that will fly in June 2024, which will fly upgraded version of the systems and will build on the knowledge that we will generate with the first mission. So we are, as you probably can estimate, we are flying in 9 months from now, so we are pretty in the massive speed of the development. And so all hands on the space van, which have already endured some critical steps, structural model testing, and now close to CDR. And let's say we've also, on the ground segment side, managed to secure some agreement with LiftSpace so that the ITU and so on. So that's really the overall development status, both in terms of business and technical, of our various product lines.
When you say all hands on deck, how many people work in the company as of today?
So right now we are about 90 people basically in ExoTrail. And so keep in mind, we were about 50 people 1 year ago. So it's been an interesting year.
They're all based outside Paris, or do you have more than one locations?
So right now we have 2 locations at ExoTrail. One is both for now are in France. One is in Paris suburb, so as you've said, so in Massy, which is about 20 minutes driving distance from Paris. And the second one is in Toulouse, well known for its space activities. Initially, so all the software development activities and operation were in Toulouse. All the rest, so hardware, production, development, and the management was in Massy. That kept on, and the space van itself is on both locations. There is tendency that the vehicle development is in Toulouse and the space drop service, product management and so on, launch management is in Massy, but we're pretty flexible on this, and so we hire in both locations on the space van. We hire massively, and I know this podcast are usually used quite a lot, and I've been surprised by potential candidates. So we hired all the potential discipline you could think of in the space industry, and in both Massy and Toulouse, and soon in the US.
As you talked about recruitment earlier, you said we found people very easy and they're very high skilled here in Europe. You're the first person I meet in the last years that said that it's easy to find people. So how do you find your human resources? What is your holy grail on that?
What I'm saying is that there is a density of skill sets which is high. A lot of universities. You have a very strong space industry in Europe with, you like it, you don't like it, I don't know, but a lot of people want to discover something else than the large prime company model. So they are excited in working in a startup. In a certain way, I think that it's easier to hire very good skills in Europe than in the US. Then it remains relatively hard. It depends which topics. I would say that we've worked a lot on our employer brand. We're doing a lot for employees to build a culture of transparency, of feedback, of action. And I think that's attractive. We have a super low churn rate. We start to be quite well known also in the industry, which makes us relatively attractive. And I think that what people find interesting at ExoTrail as well, we're working a lot. We have progress also to make on our side, is the diversity of the career path that you can find at ExoTrail. We've got, I can't name all the fields that we have, obviously all the fields in engineering, in finance, in human resources, in product and so on, but also in flight dynamics, in software, in mechanical engineering, thermal engineering, in system engineering, in DevOps. And I would say a combination of these three things, being well-known, career path, and enjoy life at ExoTrail, basically.
Is French mandatory?
No, I'll be honest. One of the big objectives of this year is to expand in the US, right? So we have non-French speakers in ExoTrail. What we do usually is that we pay, let's say, lessons in French. It's a bigger issue if you don't speak English than if you don't speak French.
We covered a number of your news over the last year, and there were a few on operations and partnerships. What can you tell us there?
So definitely, 2022 was pretty exciting. In terms of customer base, it changed really dramatically. We've signed a lot of new customers. We've signed a fair amount of constellation customers. And more interestingly, we've signed a few repeat orders already. Customers for which we've worked already together on some projects and are reordering propulsion systems. It's been a good year. I can tell we can't always disclose the name of the customers, but I can name a few. The recurring ones, for instance, they've been customer of our software for 4 years in a row. They are very demanding customers, and they've been an encore customer from day one, and they've helped us, I think, progress on the user experience of our software, how it delivers value to them. I'm confident that if it did not deliver value to them, they would have stopped. You tell them that they're not really known for throwing money outside of the window. So they've really been a great customer on this. So not new this year, but it's interesting. I think you're going to be judged as much on your new customer than on your repeat customer. Both say quite a lot. We have some announcements in 2021. We've signed a propulsion system contract for York Space Systems in the US, so that we can mention. Another US customer, I've recently mentioned, we were working together, Starfish, a pretty exciting company that's based in Seattle that is doing to perform orbit servicing missions in the future. The thing is, and that's the bit that is pretty frustrating, is that we've signed a constellation customer in North America, a constellation customer in Japan, a constellation customer in Europe, and we can't name these at the moment. Hopefully it will come, and then we can announce this maybe later in the year. But extending a lot of new countries, we've signed contracts in the US, new customers in Canada, in Japan, in Singapore, in Belgium. So there are a fair amount of new customers, but also partner for the future. A big signature was Airbus. So we've signed a MOU with Airbus to help integrate their mini spaceware. These are a 400-watt propulsion system, which is used for small and large constellations, right? So to bring an advanced high delta V, high thrust for an electric propulsion system capability to this small satellites. And in the actual MOU, we do a lot of work together. And so far, it's been a fruitful collaboration with them on mostly Earth observation mission. So that's a key partner we've signed this year. Aerospace in Germany is a good one because early in the year we've signed a software contract to help them do their pre-design of constellation deployment for their customers. But also later in the year we've announced MLSA, so multi-launch service agreement with ISAR. This time we we buy rockets and secure, let's say, our manifest until 2029, right? Which gives us real visibility. Obviously, we're looking forward to the first launches, but this is a key partner as well, which they are customer, we are customer, and that works pretty well. And also MOU with Arianespace, which really we use to extend our portfolio of launch success in the next few years, which definitely we think will be key for the space van and space drop offers to take off, without any pun intended.
I read that you're on track on becoming the worldwide mobility leader in space, what I think is very ambitious. What makes you unique? So
that's a very good question. There are two really big family of answers. The first one is that we have been convinced from day one that you need an end-to-end family of solutions to solve the mobility problem for customers. The situation is the following. If I am doing only propulsion systems and you are a customer and you have a mobility problem, requirement, need, you name it. It means that you need, for instance, to access a certain plane in order to deliver the right, typically, revisit rate for your Earth observation constellation, for instance. If I am a propulsion system provider only, believe me that I will find always all the reasons to explain to you that the propulsion system that I have is the right one for your application. The thing is that if you're only doing propulsion or only doing OTV, you're not really a mobility company. You are an OTV company or a propulsion company. And it means that whatever your customers will need, you will suggest strongly to use your solution. The reality, the tough reality maybe, if you are in the mobility business, is that there is no single solution for all of the problems. And like on Earth, you're going on holidays, for instance, somewhere you take the plane, somewhere you take the train, and then you'll take a car that you've parked at the station to get to your final destination. So that's the same thing in space. So the fact, and that's the big difference that we have in face our customer, is that we're not pushing a technical solution, we're solving a customer problem. And I think that still most of the companies that we see out there are pushing technical solutions. And I like to think that it's not what we do at ExoTrail, and that we spend more time focusing on the problem that our customer have than on the technical solution that we provide. That's the first big difference. It helps us also to really solve this in the right way. Honestly, there is not a single customer conversation that does not end with us saying, oh, we are going to loop you in with this person at ExoTrail that can solve your mission design software, or that can talk about space, automating your space operation. And because this is linked, because when you have someone purchasing a propulsion system out of us, we know that they will come 6 months after, which is, oh, but that means that I need to have one flight dynamics engineer that I need to hire for every propulsion system, because I need to run the orbital determination and then to plan the maneuvers and then to execute these maneuvers and then we say we know that's going to happen. So we know that by selling propulsion to them, we usually solve a need for them, which is you're reducing launch costs or optimizing performances. But in a way, we do create a need, which is how to automate this, right? And we know how to answer that need. It also goes with something which is not always pushing for a solution, and it happened in the past. We've rerouted some customers to some competitors usually, sometimes, because we thought that their propulsion system or their mission software or whatever were solving their specific problems better than what we would have done. We need to be consistent in doing that. Then, obviously, in order to build a successful growing business, we need to be competitive in every single of our product lines. It doesn't mean that we need to be the best all the time for every application, but we need to basically be the best in the majority of the time. Because we bring modern software development techniques and approach to complex expert topics like flight dynamics and system design, we are able to get quick answers quickly. And I think to a certain extent, legacy software and mission design sometimes take a lot of time to deliver to you quick or simple answers. So what we do is that we can get very access in a few minutes. You can go from blank page to early design of the constellation, to what if does it mean if I tweak that plane a bit there, to how can I compare the deployment with dedicated rockets or deployment with orbital transfer vehicle or deployment with propulsion system, or a bit of there, a bit of this, a bit of that. You can simulate this complex problem very easily and get access to early answers fairly easily. And then you can go more in details, answer to the question, okay, how long will it take if I go from 500 kilometers to 800 kilometers using a low thrust propulsion system on a satellite that does not have a low amount of power, so you need to cycle the propulsion system, blah, 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 blah. This typically involves a lot of different system engineering, power design, propulsion design, mission design, and so on. And so same, you can get access to these pretty complex simulations because of the years of expertise that we've built and included in the software in flight dynamics to get access relatively easily to these answers, and not only to get the answer, but also to integrate all of this in the workflow of your company through our APIs that are built around our software, so that you can have that compute things that you need for operating or designing your mission. That's on Studio. So really automation, user experience, and that's what we build and that we are going to continue to improve in this year. Spaceware, we have a unique combination of high thrust and high efficiency. So it means that we offer that very nice balance in between only using a few kilograms in your satellite, in your 50, 100 kilogram satellites. Our propulsion system will only weigh 4 or 5 kilograms, take a relatively small amount of space, and still be able to deliver in a few weeks to do 200, 300 kilometer change, or in a few months to do a bit more, in a few months to perform pretty large plane change, to do 1-2 degrees inclination change. So we have that balance into the speed at which we can do the maneuvers, which are okay in terms of business, but without using 50, 100 kilogram of propellant to deliver on that mission. So it means that usually now our customers have understood that. So it means that they translate this need into spec, and usually we are the only one to meet the specs, particularly for microsat, so 50, 100 kg, where really we see biggest growth. And also we are very flexible. We are very flexible in the way we can arrange our modules inside the spacecraft of our customers. So it means that we can adapt easily to the satellite platforms of our customers and not the opposite, right? But we do not compromise on the quality and performance that we get out of that. And this is something that a lot of our customers want. I do think that we are also putting really the customer at first and the quality of the project management and quality at first. And we are very transparent with our customer. And it means that we already had reorders with companies based mostly, because they told us, on the quality of our project management. So they said, okay, we've worked with 4 other propulsion companies, and you are the company that we like the most because of your transparency and quality of the project management approach. And I can't quote the name of the customer, and that's sad, but it's in the US. And so that helps a lot, and I think that can become competitive advantage, which might be more defensible than you could initially think. So spaceware, high performance, putting customer at the core for project management, and flexibility to fit in your satellite and not the opposite. Space drop, I go fairly quickly. We are using electric propulsion in our OTV, unlike most, if not all of the other OTVs that are using chemical propulsion. Now, you will tell me this is not a customer benefit, this is a feature of your product, and you will be entirely right. So what does that change for your customer? So physics, if you are doing electric propulsion, it means that you will use less propellant for the maneuver, so you will have more space for the payload. Concretely, most of the chemical RTV out there, they can carry about 80, 100 kilogram of passenger mass. In reality, when you look at what they can do, we want to be able in 2025 to offer more than 350 kg of passenger mass. So that's more than 3 times this capacity. And we want to offer about twice the delta V that they provide. So it means that the delta V, meaning that you can go further away. So rather than, it's like a logistics business on Earth. We are basically a ship that can carry more passenger further away. So as a customer, instead of being able to launch, if you have, for instance, an IoT constellation of 5 satellites in 5 planes, with a chemical OTV, you will only be able to put maybe 3, 4, if you are very lucky, 5 of your satellites in the plane. So that means that you will still need to use a bunch of different launches in order to phase quickly your constellation. Whereas with a space van, with only 1 or 2 launches, you can optimize drastically the deployment of your constellation, because with one space van, you can inject with anomaly in one plane all the satellites in the plane, then you can carry to another plane, then you can change the altitude and so on to deploy in one go a lot of these satellites. And because the reality, and again, that's a tough reality, but the unit economics of the space van and OTV business are tough. And the reality, and as I've said multiple times, I do not know how to close a business case with only 100 kilogram of passenger payload. So that's what we do. We bring more passengers further away. And you could say, yes, but it's slower. Not necessarily. It's slower for some missions because EP, electric propulsion, is slower than chemical propulsion. So it will take more time to go from one altitude to another one. That's true. Yes, it will sometimes take weeks in terms of days, sometimes even take months instead of weeks. But for one specific mission, which is plane change, so in a given inclination, given altitude, you just want to, it's like you take the Earth and cut it with planes like that. And so to go from one plane to another plane, for reasons that are too complex to explain in this podcast, it doesn't take more time to do this with electric propulsion than with chemical propulsion. Because you do not really go from one plane to another. Actually, you go further away from the altitude that you target, you wait, and then you go back. And because you can do this in a more efficient way with electric propulsion, you go further away, you all in all go quicker. This means that in some cases, and for our constellation customer, we don't even balance on speed. That's the idea. TOA is basically like Studio. We automate things. We use modern software development approach. We integrate things together so that we can go quicker. We've got a lot of product lines, but we are also for value. So automation, lowering costs on the software activities, high thrust, flexibility, customer first on proportion. We bring more mass further away for the space drop line of services.
Maybe I'm heading in the wrong direction with my thoughts, but RPO, rendezvous and proximity operations, seems to be part of where you're going when you're changing planes, when you're going to other destination in orbit. And especially, as you said at the beginning, we might also take stuff from space onto our OTV and then bring it to other places. Sooner or later, you have to rendezvous with another object. So this entire discussion is globally on a policy level right now, and it's ongoing. So there's no, to my knowledge, there's no compromises or solution at the moment on the horizon. Are you part of these conversations, like in Converse or in other organizations?
Yeah, definitely. We are part of Converse that we've joined for that reason. So for the people listening, so Converse is a global association that focuses on building the right standards and the right policies of the rendezvous and proximity operation linked services, so basically on-orbit servicing. And so we wanted to join this because we do believe it's key. And also I think for European players, it's key to join this international forums of discussions because there will be a lot of standards, right? And you don't want to miss the standard train, as they say. We also joined a Forum pour la Paix, for instance, a global initiative, but it's a different initiative from Converse, but which is mostly as space, as far as space is concerned, focusing on space debris as well. So also helping building the foundations of space laws. We've actually hired the general counsel, space lawyer, Phil Gobert, who actually helped writing the space law in France on space debris. So we take this very seriously, and I think that the two keywords there are standards and policies, right? Policies and regulation. So standards will be key in RPO for very technical reasons, right? If you want to refuel, if you want to attach, you'll need something to attach to, which is known by the industry. We are looking at that with the space van, obviously. There are a lot of companies engaged out there. So I'm thinking of the RAFTI interface, for instance, from OrbitFab. There is also a standard proposed by ESA, GMP, and so on. This will definitely be key. And then policies is a bit the Wild West. When we discuss with investors or even friends, honestly, when they ask, okay, but are you allowed to do all that? And there are a bunch and a lot of different regulations and so on in space if you want to launch things and so on. And I'm like, not that much actually. There is a lot of, obviously there is the ITU and frequencies. It's pretty, you have a common resources that you need to break down all across the world, and that's done. But there is no space traffic management. A lot of the qualification in a space project is a peer-to-peer qualification. And so it means that mostly on the space traffic management, it will happen. The question is when, is how. And so obviously, as a space logistics company, you want to be involved in this discussion. But it will need to happen. Otherwise, I think that there is a risk that we go a bit in not a disaster, but there is a risk for the next generation that space will no longer be usable if we do not adopt the right regulations right here, right now.
What will happen with your transfer vehicle after the last payload is delivered? Are you returning back? Can you reuse it? I mean, it seems that it's in your planning for, as you mentioned earlier, the phase 2, but what will happen with the first space vans? Are you deorbit them?
Yes and no. The vision is, we've discussed it, is to really use the space van as a platform for orbit servicing. For most of it, actually, it doesn't really change. It does, obviously, but in terms of what you sell to the customer, it's the same thing. It's still going from one place to another, but instead of putting your satellite on Earth in your space van, launching it, deploying it, you have your satellite somewhere, and with the space van, we grab it and we move it somewhere else. Obviously, flight dynamics is a bit stubborn, so it does have some implications on where the satellite needs to be initially, but it does change in terms of concept and technically, but at the end of the day, the value you provide to the customer is the same. What changes completely is the business model. Instead of having a kind of a margin on each mission that you have, it's really an asset investment, and then you amortize that asset over a certain amount of mission. So that's the angle. We can also do other new services, so refueling, cleaning, alone in partnerships with some other companies, obviously, and that's what we want to do. Now, before that, it's really a step-by-step approach. It's like SpaceX, they didn't build their first rocket as a reusable rocket. They first built non-reusable rockets, and then to make it reusable. So that's a bit the spacing with the space van. So to go quickly to build our customer base, heritage, technology, we wanted to go fast. So at first, not reusable. But even in that first missions, we don't want to dump the space van after the last payload for, efficiency, environmental, financial reason. We don't want to dump an asset that is still functional. So we wanted to deliver value still to other customers. And there is two ways that we do this. Us, ExoTrail, as a customer, we use the space van after the last payload has been delivered to be able to gain space heritage on everything that goes out of our product development team here in Massy, in our hardware development team. As on propulsion and the things that are linked, we also develop gimbal, fluidic system, PPU, and so on. So a bunch of space hardware around propulsion. Space heritage, obviously, is absolutely critical. So we've seen a high growth once we had a space heritage. The thing is that we internalize that risk. So rather than having to trust customers or funding or fund projects only for that to gain space heritage and fly our thrusters, every 3 months, we will have a space van flying in space, and we can use part of its resources after the last payload to demonstrate its capabilities, right? So that's a way with which we deliver value with our space van. And what we do effectively is hosted payload for our application. So obviously, we also offer hosted payload services for customers. It means, and at this time for this first generation, people will have obviously to contact us beforehand to integrate their payload in our space van for testing, let's say, in space after the last payload has been launched. Some of this could be tested during the mission, if it's software, for instance, or if it's low risk for the mission. But we do offer that capability. We are more in the early stage in-orbit demonstration, in-orbit verification of space hardware. Could be testing a payload, yes. Could be testing avionics as well. So things for which you need a pretty capable vehicle in terms of power, for instance. It's a pretty competing offering in terms of pricing in order to get space heritage relatively easily, relatively quickly with a platform that is very capable, particularly in terms of power, because we use electric propulsion, right? So we have a lot of power available. Obviously with the orbit, right? So we keep a delta V budget to be able to perform a deorbitation maneuver at the end of the mission to not generate any debris after we've done everything that we wanted to do.
Is the entire area of space debris removal also a market for you in the future? Because you're rendezvousing at a certain state and you grab or you connect to the object that can be also then space debris.
Yes, no, definitely. So as I was mentioning, in the long term, again, we want to look at space cleaning through on-orbit servicing. I think in a way, refueling as well, life extension, and what is a way to prevent debris, right? Because you extend the lifespan of the satellites. But I would say, so yes, but not only in the future. We don't have a single customer that does not have collision avoidance and deorbitation as part of their CONOPS. And we do not have only French customers that have to do this by law. But arguably, most of our customers are not French on the propulsion side. So that's a very good sign. It means that people do plan for deorbitation and collision avoidance in order to respect the environment in which they launch their satellites. So we do already provide that capability, but we also provide it through our software offering, right? In order to be able to automate collision avoidance, to link with third-party software that are able to perform collision avoidance simulation. We will, in the close future, be able to perform these maneuvers, suggest a collision avoidance maneuver in order to be able to avoid the collisions, analyze how you will deorbit your satellites, and so on. So I would say that it already is a demand from our customers. We already deliver value in that direction. And the more it will go, the more we will be able to effectively address that key side of the space equation right now.
Before we are coming to an end of this super long Space Cafe raid here, what will 2023 hold for you?
Because we are running late, I try to be quick. It will bring, let's say, a lot more for products being used in operation. So in space for propulsion system, first mission of the space van, Space Tower being used for operating the first satellites, Space Studio continuing to grow, to design a lot of new space missions. So there is really that in production mode that will grow a lot this year. That's the first thing. We will grow our business. We want to, the sales and revenues figures that we target this year start to be pretty high in the 8-digit kind of range. And there is a strong amount of that growth that we think will come from everywhere in the world, specifically in the US. That's what we expect. And to do that, expanding in the US with an actual presence that will be absolutely key. And growth in terms also of hiring, right? We are, as I told, 90 people right now. If we do the same podcast in 1 year, we should be about 160, 70-ish, right? And so that's absolutely key for us. And we really want to offer a good place to work. If you are listening to that podcast because you are looking for a job, always look at our website, contact me, contact people. And if that's in 2023, that would be awesome. So that's really in production, growth of the business, growth of the people that are building this business.
As we are releasing this podcast here a day before the European Space Conference in Brussels, so where can people meet you in the next months?
In the European Space Conference, first, our CEO will be there. I will be in Mountain View early February for the Small Satellite Symposium. I'll be there actually. Chief Commercial Officer, our sales team, our CEO, Henri, will be there. And we have a lot of other events, satellite in Washington, the Space Symposium in Colorado Springs. We'll be in Logan this summer. We'll be in AIC. So we'll be in mostly virtually all the events that you will see there. And you are more than welcome if you happen to be Paris region or in Toulouse region to, call us and if we can give you a tour. And we've done that for many customers last year. That was really good. So yeah, that's where we can find us. And in the digital world as well, obviously on LinkedIn, Twitter, we always release new job offerings, news as well. So you are more than welcome to follow us there.
David, thank you very, very much for your time and for this fantastic insights. We will follow your further developments. What remains to me is wish you good luck for these massive steps you have ahead of you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It's been great. If you allow me one last bit ad. We're actively marketing our Space Drop manifest, the first mission, second mission. There are still some spots available on the first mission that will fly in October 2023. CubeSats only, mostly 6U CubeSats. But if you need to launch your CubeSat in the Q4 of this year, Falcon 9 on board of our space van, you are more than welcome to contact us to take part of that exciting first mission. And finally, thanks a lot for inviting me in and looking forward to that great year ahead of us.
With this Space Café Radio, we broke a record today for the longest episode so far. I think it was exciting to listen, David. Even we had some issues on the sound quality where we apologize. If you want to stay on the pulse of the space industry, please visit our website at www.SpaceWatch.Global and subscribe to our newsletters. And of course, don't forget to become a Space Watcher. I'm Thorsten Kriening, publisher at SpaceWatch.Global, your independent perspective on space.